A Tribe Called Quest.
In the 1980s, legendary hip-hop group A Tribe Called Quest formed. Since that time, they have been viewed as pioneers of the genre.
You find students going into libraries now and buying African books and all that to learn about where they came from, you know, all over, students all over. Big debates about it now.
And also kids in college are starting to take
yeah.
African courses now also. I'm starting to see that.
More courses are being put into schools, you know. There have been protests in certain schools in America because they don't have African culture classes, and those protests, due to those protests, those classes have been added to the curriculum, you know. So there's a strong movement.
While many view Tribe with jazzy samples infused in their powerful beats, the albums they put out and songs they have written are more than James Brown's Funky Drummer, Lou Reed's Walk on the Wild Side, Ronnie Foster, Rotary Connection, and Cannonball Adderley, to name a few. They were unapologetically themselves, philosophical but not off-putting with their knowledge, confident in themselves but not brash. As Toure wrote, Tribe was vital in helping to spread the Afrocentrism movement to a new, more mainstream generation of listeners. They rapped about Africa, aka the motherland, and excursions, named a song after an anti-apartheid activist, warned us of the industry with show business, asked, "What's America without green and glamour on what?" and painted the picture of surviving in New York City on the track Everything is Fair.
I think the stakes are raised when music criticism understands the world that music is being released into, because that affects the way that music is heard, that affects the way that people engage with it, that affects the way that people escape from the world they're living in or run into it with more vigor. It was important for me to write about A Tribe Called Quest with the same kind of historical reverence that we see the Beatles written about, or we see the Rolling Stones written about. I wanted to give A Tribe Called Quest that same kind of reverence.
Hanif Abdurraqib, a poet, essayist, and writer, spoke with PBS News on the group. His book, Go Ahead in the Rain, Notes to A Tribe Called Quest, is a must-read that we will link in the description box below. Following the color scheme, red, black, and green, Tribe released the Low End Theory, a nod to Afrocentrism. Q-Tip would say, there's a Muslim saying that says, you will be judged by God on whether or not you were a good leader. If you're not, who is? Pointing fingers is a waste of time. It feels represented in his lyrics to many. As OK Player's Elijah C. Watson wrote, Tribe was arguably more subdued with their conscious aesthetic, but they were still equally important while challenging representations of black masculinity, an integral element of Tribe's everlasting aesthetic, a desire to be true to oneself no matter what. The group, consisting of Ali Shaheed Muhammad, Q-Tip, Cherobi White, and Phife Dawg, would go through the highs and lows of mainstream success. After 5 albums that left an impact on hip-hop heads everywhere, in 2016, Phife Dawg would tragically pass away. The cause was complications from diabetes. This was the same time as
Putin, from everything I see, has no respect for this person.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
It's pretty clear you won't admit that the Russians have engaged in cyber attacks against the United States of America, that you encouraged espionage against our people, that you are willing to spout the Putin line, sign up for his wish list, break up NATO, do whatever he wants to do, and that you continue to get help from him because he has a very clear favorite in this race.
The rise of this man in American politics, wrote Eric Thurm. They were inspired to start recording after their performance on Fallon in 2015, another space that helped make Donald Trump appear to be nothing more than a humorous buffoon. They would release We Got It From Here, Thank You for Your Service, on November 11, 2016, just days after Trump won the election over Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. It was their first album in 18 years. The second track, We the People, features a chorus that the former president himself laid the groundwork on.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
When he said this of Mexican people.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown
of Muslims entering the United States.
This of Muslims, his attacks on the LGBTQ plus community, homeless people, where he has vowed to arrest the less fortunate by the thousands and moving them to what the mainstream press has called tent cities, and his countless attacks on black folks throughout his time when he was sued for racial discrimination, the calling for the exonerated Phife to be executed, calling Haiti an asshole country, and of course much more. It is embodied in the chorus when Q-Tip puts Trump's own bigoted mantra that he espouses into the lyrics. It's a stark reminder of a hate-fueled man that pushes any citizen that is not white to the back of the line in American life. The album leads with the space program, a blisteringly honest assessment of life in the United States in the form of systemic inequality, inequity, and being black in America. Jerobi, who Q-Tip calls the spirit of the group, raps, "They planning for our future, people, none of our people involved," and makes a nod to political activism that is seen throughout the world when one sees the problems big government creates when learning the history of mankind. On Conrad Tokyo, a track featuring Kendrick Lamar and Jack White, Phife Dawg makes his feelings known on how SNL also normalized Trump, but the times don't call for it. Seeing the BS people spew in lieu of the country being ruined and dissent being seen as sipping the haterade from pro-capitalists and members of the MAGA movement. And that's just to name a few. Overall, wrote Boaz N., this album manages to highlight important social discussions surrounding minority injustices and advocates for unity and inclusion among all types of people, all while this clear vision is supported by light-hearted wittiness and the groovy, timeless sound that people have come to love of the group. Sadly, Jerobi White does believe that Phife Dawg, who was living in California and traveling back and forth from California to the East Coast to work with Q-Tip and others on this album, he thinks killed him. Toure would speak with White, who said, and he was very happy to go out like that. From the Times, its title is the one Phife wanted. What does it mean? I don't know, Q-Tip would say. We're just going with it because he liked it. Q-Tip would go on, it's so hard for me to sit in there and hear his voice. Sometimes I just have to take a break and walk away. It gets heavy. It doesn't necessarily get sad, it just gets heavy. I literally feel the energy from him when I hear his voice. The main message is this. It is about interconnectivity. It is about understanding the injustices that take place at the behest of an American government that has never seen people who are not predominantly white Christian men as the authority, as people who should be allowed and enabled into any space that they wish in American life. It is about reparations, or the lack thereof. It is about social equity, inequality. They call all of this out. And it feels like a grand opening, grand closing, because this was the album that marked their return after 18 years, and then them putting it away forever. It is beautifully put. It is one of their best albums, and it's hard to even rank which one would be number one. That's a conversation for hip-hop heads to have everywhere. But more importantly, it is the messages and stances that they put together in an entire Hall of Fame-worthy body of work, and also those that they leave us with.